Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Francesca Apostolou. How did I do? How was that?
Great, yes.
Okay.
Yes, most people do.
Great name, by the way. What? So how are you doing? To start off with, how's everything with you?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you. It's a sunny day here in New York, and whenever it's sunny in New York, it's a great day.
It's funny. It's sunny there. It's raining here in Vegas today, so we kind of swim. Yeah, that's a rarity in itself. It probably rains 4 times a year here in Vegas, so it's a rainy day here today. So cool. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited to jump into today's conversation. But before we do so, do you want to give us a little introduction into who you are and what you've been up to in real estate?
Yeah. So my name is Francesca, and I'm from Westchester County, New York. I'm a mom and a wife. I'm a mom of 2 beautiful kids, James and Julia. And I have been investing in real estate since 2002. And my first investment was our single family home that we went to our broker and said to our broker, can you find us the ugly house on the block, on a great block? And so she did, and we found this house, and this house was, when we pulled up, I want to say it was pink. The color was pink, but it had great land, it had great bones, and it was in a nice neighborhood. So we knew we could take that home and make it into our own. And so, we did that in 2002. We rehabbed it. And it took us about, I want to say, because we went from soup to nuts. We did interior, exterior, roof, landscaping, you name it, tree cutting. We did it all. It took us about 5 years. But once we completed that renovation, we were able to pull money out and help us refinance our first investment property.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's great. So I'm interested to know, so most people, when they buy their house, they're looking for something beautiful and nice and move-in ready, and they don't have to do any work. Do you guys have any background in construction or rehabbing or anything like that? What was it that attracted you guys to wanting to buy the ugly house that needed all that work done in the first place?
Yeah, well, we knew firsthand that it was a hot market when we were buying to begin with. So we knew firsthand if we were buying even a kind of like a fixer-upper, even if it wasn't just a lot, it was still going to be a lot of money, right, to buy. Like, we're in that kind of market now. But we were looking for that person that was living in it for years, which we did find. And so they took an interest in us because we were newlyweds and we were just looking to buy a home. So it was a perfect marriage to buy this home. And so as far as I love doing interior design. That's just although I'm a teacher, and a real estate investor, I do love interior design as well. So I knew I wanted to make it my own, but I also knew that there was value in creating and rehabbing and creating equity in a home. And so being the way it looked, they were never going to sell that home for what other homes were selling for because it needed a lot of work. It had dark paneling in the basement. It had overgrown trees. It was a pink. Like, who wanted a pink house, right? So just seeing that, we knew we could create equity there and also make it our own. And I was able to put my own touch to it because I do love interior design and I love rehabbing. So that brought us. And my husband actually is in construction. In heavy construction, rather. He's in the industry of utility work, but he did have some construction people that he knew that he could help us, create this home that we built.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And that's, you hear people say it all the time, right? If you're trying to find a deal or find a good property as an investment, find the ugliest house in the best street, right? So that, because obviously the street is good, but you can fix up that house and create value through that. And then after 5 years, you said that you then got to a point that you were able to refinance and pull some money out of that. For people who maybe heard about cash out refinance or whatever, how hard is that process? Is it very hard? Is it very easy? What does it entail? What does that look like? Just so people, because you hear about people doing the BRRRR all the time, doing the cash out refinance and whatnot. What does that look like? And how, you know, is it like pulling tooth, or is it pretty easy?
I think, I mean, it's not hard.
Okay.
I think what you need is a good property that you were able to create value in. So, you know, it all depends on how you buy the property. Of course, if you're buying it high and rehabbing it, there might not be that much equity. But if you know your neighborhood and you see, okay, this is what this house is selling for, looking this way, if I buy this property at this price and I'm able to put so much money into it, what would it look like in a year or 2 years from now, possibly? And so the cash out refi process was, I mean, you need a good house. You need to have rehabbed it to the point where you created equity in it. But also, I have to say, it also has to do with your credit as well, right? So you really need good credit in order to be able to do stuff like that. But that's, banks are looking, you know, look for that as well. So it was easy for us because we are, you know, we both have our jobs, and we also we have great credit. So, and we created a great home.
And great equity, yeah.
And great equity, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing to hear you say that then is that in 2002, it was a hot market, right? We all know what the run-up was from there, right? And, you know, fast forward to where we are today, it's a hot market today. So you can, you know, it begs the question, right? And just, you know, we're in a hot market and people think there's going to be some kind of correction or crash, but, you know, it could be another 5 years, right? To get to that from 2002, 2007. So it's such an interesting, you know, to hear you say that in 2002 that you thought it was a really hot market.
It was hot then, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
And there's a saying about, like, if a farmer waits for great weather, he'll never plant a seed, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's all about that too. It's like there's never a good time, but you just have to educate yourself and kind of, you know, look at what your market's doing.
Yeah, very true, very true, very true. I like that. So then you went and bought your first investment property using those funds from the cash out. What was your first investment property?
Well, it was a mistake. It was like we became accidental landlords.
Okay.
Back in 2000, when did we buy that? 2007. We bought a place out in Florida, and it was going to be just for vacationing. You know, and get out of New York winters. We had 2 little kids. We figured, you know, we can go down there when it's cold here. And I'm a teacher. I have a lot of time off. So it was nice to kind of get away whenever I was off. Then it came to a time where my kids were getting older and it was getting tougher because they were busy. We were busy with them. So we decided, let's just rent it because we weren't making it there as often. So we became accidental landlords. But that whole process, there was lessons learned in there. And it really gave us the notion of you can have passive income. But unfortunately, back in 2007, the interest rates were very high. So when we did close on that property, it was 6.5%. So that was a high interest rate when you think about the interest rates today. So in order to bring down the interest rate of that property, we weren't able to just go get bank loaning in Florida at the time because a lot of properties were being abandoned back then because it was the mortgage crisis had happened in 2008. And so homes in Florida, and especially newer developments, which we were in, banks were not allowing you to refinance. So we decided we have a great property. Let's cash out refi our own home and refinance. So we went from 6.5% to 3.5%. Yeah. So so that made our mortgage payment so much lower. And so we were able to rent the property and actually cash flow. So that's when we saw the power of what real estate can do for you when you leverage one property against another. And so that was our first investment property, if you want to call it that, because we became accidental landlords. But we saw the power of what real estate can do for you if you buy it right? We saw what it can do for you if you don't buy it right in Florida at the time, and we saw what it could do for you when you buy it right. And so we were able to use that property that we bought right to help us with the other property that was I guess the one on our side at the time. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. And then so when you became accidental landlords, were you guys self-managing? Did you guys decide to self-manage, or did you guys hire a property manager?
We self-managed. My husband did a lot of that, a lot of the back and forth with different vendors, whether it was HVAC people or carpets being replaced. I was the person that was the broker relationship as far as getting my place, ready and rented and stuff like that. But my husband, and also vetting the tenants. My husband was the one to deal with the tenants. So yeah, we did it ourselves.
What was there a reason you guys decided to self-manage it? Was it more a financial decision, or was it more you guys wanted sort of control over the property?
I think it was a little bit of both. I don't think there was enough cash flow in it to create another job with a property management company. But at the same time, we were able to control what we were able to do with it. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. And for people who might be on the fence about self-managing or using a property manager, what would you say to them about self-managing? Because I think people have a fear of self-managing, right? And you've got to do it right and understand and put time in and educate yourself and things like that. You can't just take over a property and think everything's going to be fine. But at the same time, I don't think it's as intimidating as people think, right?
Yeah, it's not as intimidating. I mean, it depends on how big the property is and how many tenants you're managing. But in particular, this was just one, so it wasn't hard. But you had to create your network of people that you were able to tap into in another market. Because I mean, we're in New York, and the property was down in Florida, so we had to have our maintenance person, we had to have our plumber, whatever it may have been that we needed at the time, our HVAC person. So we had contracts, and so I mean, was it hard? No, but was it work? Yes, it was work. Sure.
And then how did you build that team? Because like you said, that brought me to the next question. Obviously, you're in New York and the property in Florida. It's not like you can pop over or go meet people all the time or whatnot, right? You have to build a team and be reliant on that team. So how we, because the power of the team is and it can be done, and it's and it's very powerful once it's done right. But building that good team initially can be a challenge, right? How were you guys able to build a solid team there?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of my husband networking with people when we would go down to visit the property, especially in the beginning. If we had to have something fixed, there might have been like contractors on the property at the time because it was brand new. So he would tap into someone and say, hey, do you want to do some side work or, so stuff like that. So building a team that way on looking, because he was good at looking for people that are in the business, because he's in the business. So it was like tapping those type of people, but also my broker relationship with my agent that would rent them. He would also give me some great reliant people as well. So it was a little bit of both.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. And it's a lot of times, it's like you said, it starts with that one person. Your husband helped, but having that broker relationship, having someone an agent there that you could rely and trust and use that person, leverage that person, right? If you find one good person, you can leverage that person to find a number of other people. What's been some learning lessons on that one? I'm sure there's been some self-managing and and everything like that. What's been some lessons that you've learned from that property?
Yeah. So one of the lessons is, I mean, you have to buy right. That's one of the lessons. I mean, I don't think anyone saw the mortgage crisis coming. I think that was just like something that just kind of caught us all off guard. But buying it right is huge. And also just the tenants, we had one tenant who just always wanted to like fix everything without us knowing and just like saying, oh, here's the bill. It was like, no, like you can't just say you could do this and do that and there's no reason, so we dealt with different type of tenant personalities. And so there were some lessons learned, and one of them in particular was buying it right and having to deal with tenants as well. So
yeah, it's so interesting. So the tenant would fix a lot of stuff, and that's nice. So it's good to have a tenant that wants to fix stuff, but at the same time, it's your property, right? And if they decide that they're going to repaint all the walls, put new flooring, I don't know. I have no idea what they did, but that might not be necessarily needed in the property, and that's an incurred cost that you would have. So how did you handle that? How did you deal with that? What was the solution to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, like one particular thing is they wanted to get like a remote control for their fan, right? And so they bought a whole new fan and they expected us, and meanwhile it was working, you could pay, we're like, no, that's not something that's necessary. I mean, it was, if you would have asked us, maybe, but at the same time, it was just like, it wasn't a necessary thing. It's just something that you wanted. So that's going to make your life easier, then it's going to have to be on your dime. And so, so yeah, so it was like just kind of educating our tenants as to these are our parameters and this is what we would pay for. But anything beyond that would have to be, something that they would, especially if it's something that doesn't need real fixing.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's important to set those parameters and have the tenants understand these are the rules. This is what we expect from you. This is what we're willing to do, and then it's clear as day, right? There's no gray in there, and everyone understands, and everyone's on the same page. And I think a lot of issues that happen between tenant and landlords is confusion, right? And it's misunderstanding, and that's what causes a lot of tension, I think, and problems a lot of times. So when everything is black and white, I think it helps a lot. And it's not that you not an understanding of their situation and that you're not willing to listen to them, but it's just, that makes everything a lot easier.
Yeah.
And a big part of being a good landlord as well, isn't, I think that you said this was part of your process, was the tenant screening, right? So what is your process for screening tenants?
Yeah, I mean, they go through the process of, we look at their credit score, right? What their job history is, how much are they making? Can they afford the rent? So all those things are important. So our broker would give us all the information. He would do the screening, give us the information. We would look at their credit score, what their income was. And, I had one tenant who, she unfortunately didn't have great credit, and it was only because she had so many student loans, but she didn't make enough money to cover the rent, but she would say her dad would cover the rest. And so it was just like, you had to make a decision there. Like, how would you, what would you do with this tenant? So if it's going to be your dad covering the rent, then you're going to have to put him on the lease, so there's all these different things that you go through to try to place a good tenant. But we definitely looked at their credit score and their income.
And in terms of that, what are you guys looking for? Three times monthly?
Three times, yes, the monthly income.
And then in terms of credit, just so people have an idea if they're trying to see,
at least, like a 600 or better.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the idea that is behind, if you take care of your credit and take care of your finances enough to have at least a 600.
Yes.
You're going to be responsible to pay the rent.
Correct. Exactly.
Very cool. And you guys still own that property now?
What's that?
You guys still own that property?
We just recently sold it, so
okay.
We do not.
How did you do it? Did you guys make out on it? And did it from when you guys bought it?
It was kind of like a wash. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, it was a hot market. It was a wash.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the experience and the cash flow and
the cash flow and the experience, that was it paid for itself for sure. That right there was a great lesson. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point as well. People on the fence about buying. There's more cash flow and appreciation and making money is important, but getting in the game is important as well, right? If you wait 2-3 years before getting in, that's 2-3 years of experience. Even if you just break even, the learning experience and the education that you'll get from owning real estate and being part of it in those 2-3 years is invaluable. So even if you break even in those years, when you go to do your next investment, that education that you have and that understanding of real estate is going to be invaluable, because it's going to propel you 10 times further, I think.
100%. And then also it's like, it was a condo. It was just, it was one. So it's very different than when you have economies of scale and you have larger multifamily. And that's why we love this space, the larger multifamily, because it's like, if you have, let's say 10 units or 20 units, you're not relying on, for me, we were relying on one person to pay the rent, right? And so if you have 10 or 20 or more, you're reliant on, if one person doesn't, it's not good, but it's not terrible. You have all those others that will help, bring the property along and give you some cash flow as well. So that's where we learned a lesson. It was like, nope, we do not belong in that space. We belong in bigger space because of the economies of scale.
Yeah. So what do you guys invested in now? That brings us.
Yeah, so we are currently invested in a property in North Carolina, which is a 36 unit. So we're JV partnered in that. And so then we also have 2 LP partnerships in Pennsylvania and in Ohio. And we also GP'd in an Ohio property as well.
Oh, nice. So you decided that multifamily was where you wanted to be. Where did that realization come in, and how? Because not a lot of people, people get there eventually, but maybe not after one investment property, right? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I mean, we decided we're educating ourselves a lot on multifamily. I mean, we went back and forth, like the single family, multifamily. So it's like, okay, we need to stay in one lane, and what lane is that going to be best for us? We recognized what the single family process was, and we weren't happy with that because of what it's just that one person you're reliant on. So we educate ourselves more so in the larger multifamily. And so, we listened to podcasts, we read lots of books. And the pivoting moment, which I'll get to later, is when we actually got, educated as far as getting a mentorship, getting into a mentorship and understanding a lot more about it, and also going to our first conference. So when we did that, that's what said, oh, you know what? This is what set the difference. This is where we belong, and when you're with those people that are thinking like-mindedly like you, it was like, okay, we belong in multifamily and not just the single family space. So that was a pivoting moment, educating ourselves for sure in the multifamily space. Yeah.
What was the first multifamily investment you guys did? Was it that JV or was it as an LP?
The first one was as an LP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got the feel of what it was like to have passive income, which was pretty nice, and not having to be the landlord and not having to deal with tenants. So that's pretty nice. And also getting the tax benefits from it. And then our second one was a JV, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that JV. It's a 36 units, I think you said, right, in North Carolina. How did that come about? How did you guys, you partnered with 1 or 2 people, I'm guessing? Or something like that?
We partnered with 2 others. And it's a place in North Carolina. And the reason why we got into it is from networking within, the people that we've met through a community of multifamily investors that over the last 2 years that we've been building relationships with. So one of them had found the deal, and it was presented to us as well. And it was just a great deal that we couldn't pass up. So yeah, it's 36 units. It was a fractured condominium, and it was back in 2007. Here we go again, right? Where it's a builder built the development and couldn't sell them. I think he probably sold just a few, and he couldn't sell them. And so he had to rent the rest. And so he became an accidental landlord at the time too. I think like many of us did. And he stopped building. So in 2015, he built the rest. And in all, he built 38 units. I'm sorry. Yes, 38 units. And so we have 36 of the 38.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's an interesting one. So there's two condos that are privately owned outside of your control, essentially. How does that work? Does that make things a little bit more difficult, or does it not really change much at all?
No, because we have control of the HOA, so it doesn't change anything. You're able to control the property the way you want. So yeah. So it was a great property because they were all like they were built from 2007 to 2015. So it was a really nice looking building and nice looking apartments that are condos. So they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, beautiful. They're beautiful condos.
Very cool. So through networking, you found these partners. Was it them that were focused on North Carolina, or did you guys like North Carolina? How did the whole deal come together? Maybe paint that picture.
That's a great question. Yeah, we weren't focused on North Carolina at the time. We were focused more so in Alabama. Mm-hmm. But partners we were looking with in Alabama actually was partnering up with this other gentleman who was looking in North Carolina. So that relationship we built with our partners in Alabama brought us into this deal that was in North Carolina. So it's all about that network. Yeah. Mm. So, I mean, and we knew of our other partner too, as well. We knew, but we didn't know that he had found a deal in North Carolina. So.
Very cool. And part of the partnership, right, is having that synergy with other people and working with other people, but also it's how you split up the pie and how you split up the duties of everyone on that deal. How have you guys split it up, and how have you guys found something that works for all of you?
Yeah, so I mean, there's like vendor relationships. So we've been working on that end of it, the vendor relationships, and like, you know, whether it's for finding a signed vendor, getting quotes and presenting it to the partners. And so, yeah, so we're responsible for the vendor relationships and getting the quotes and stuff like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool. How's that deal doing?
Very well. The hot market.
Yeah.
Well.
Where in North Carolina is it, out of interest?
It's Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh yeah, very hot. Very
Yeah.
hot market. What year did you guys buy it?
What's that?
When did you buy it?
We bought it in, we closed in March 2020. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, March 2021. I forget what year we're in. March 2021.
Oh, you guys just closed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what was it about was there a value add component to it, or is it more, you know, that it was a great property with, you know, in a great market?
No. Yeah, and so like I said, the landlord was an accidental landlord, so he wasn't doing a great job managing it, and he was barely raising rents. So he was just keeping it stagnant, and he had a friend that would collect the rents. So so his, you know, it was whatever came in. It wasn't really a big deal for him, you know, it didn't matter. So the management was horrible. So there was definitely a value play with just raising rents. The place was beautiful. The condos were beautiful. I mean, they were granite, beautiful wood, you know, cherry wood cabinetry, just beautiful. And it's just that he wasn't interested in being a landlord. So yeah, so the play was to just raise rents.
Very cool, very cool. And that kind of asset in that kind of area is great because, you know, being a newer property, it being nice already, you know, gives you, you know, it's a property you guys can hold for years, I'm sure, if you want, or if in a few years you decide to sell, it's just sounds like a great asset. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
As you said, also you're a GP as well. Did I hear that right? You're a general partner on a deal as well.
Yes.
So what's the deal? How did that come about? How are you involved in that one?
Well, again, that was through a networking also with, you know, the people that and also as an LP, we're LP'd with this particular sponsor. And so being that we're LP'd with him, I found, you know, my husband and I found a great relationship with this person. We value what he does and how he runs his properties. So we partnered up to GP for one of his properties. And so we're helping out our friends and family to be able to invest in a property, invest in real estate, and create passive income. Because I think that people in my circle don't know a lot about being a limited partner. You know, they know more about being the landlord, and I had to have, you know, buckets of money in the bank in order to buy these large multifamilies. And so that's something that we learned and educate ourselves on, that doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You can become a limited partner. And I think, like I said, my circle doesn't realize that there is such thing as being a limited partner and being able to invest in large multifamily and get a dividend, whether it's monthly or quarterly. This in particular sponsor likes to do monthly dividends, which makes it so nice because you're able to say, hey, you know, I got this great check every month. I can do this with it. I could do that with it. Pay my car payment, you know, save for vacation, whatever you want to build your fund for. It's nice to know that that's coming in every month or every quarter to do what you want to do with it. And that's how I'd like to teach my friends that you could make your money work for you. Because a lot of times, what do? We just stick our money in the bank and it's like, okay, we're going to wait and see what happens. What am I going to invest in next? And I think a lot of people don't know. So this is a great avenue. And so we helped some of our friends and family get into that deal. And they're ecstatic. They're ecstatic. They're happy to know that there's a different way to invest. So.
And that's the great thing about it, right? About syndications and multifamily syndications, or just in general, real estate syndications, is that people get to be involved in real estate, but it's passive, and they get to be involved in these big deals that, you know, there's no way they could take down individually, and they get all the benefits of owning real estate, but they don't have to do anything except outside of vetting the syndication,
sponsor.
and the deal and the market right up front. But outside of that, they're not doing the asset management. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not evaluating the deal. They're not dealing with vendors, right? They're not trying to get the loan, right? They're not trying to pool all this money together. They're just finding these great group of people that put these great deals together in a great market, and they're just relying on them, and then they're getting great returns, right? You know, you get, when you consider the returns that you get, right, it's a 6, 7, 8% preferred return a lot of times, and it's, you know, 15% IRR plus, you know, even higher. You know, this is a great return for someone who doesn't do anything, and it's just a great return in general, right? And it's such a beneficial thing. And I think what I'm realizing as well is that someone like yourself, who's a GP and bringing their friends and family in on something like this, is so valuable, because a lot of times for someone who doesn't know someone like yourself, they need to be an accredited investor to come into these deals. So someone like yourself, you can bring someone that's a sophisticated investor that doesn't have to meet that accredited status, and they can invest in this deal. Otherwise they can't, right? You have to have that, know that person. And by bringing your friends and family, you're doing them a great service, you know, and it's a very valuable thing that you're doing to these people, to be able to bring them in on these very cool deals.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Awesome. So what's next for you? To continue on this GP route and bring more friends and family in, or you guys want to do more deals yourself?
A little bit of both. I mean, I love to help wherever I can. I mean, if it's a GP deal, absolutely, because there's definitely deals in the pipeline that are coming out, and they're really great ones. So you know, that is one route. Another one is we are actively looking for our own properties in the Southeast. So we are focused in on North and South Carolina, and I also do love Alabama. So we're focused in on those areas, actively looking. And hopefully, you know, right now we have a direct to seller campaign going. And hopefully one day we'll get a bite from one of them. And also, I mean, it's so important to have broker relationships as well. So we built those also. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate questions. And the first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
Oh my goodness. So, you know, I have to say, I think a lot of people don't know like what they're good at. Possibly sometimes it's like, I can always look and see what my husband might be good at, or my kids. And then when it comes to me, I'm like, okay, I have to really dive deeper. So I want to share with your listeners too, a great resource to figure out what drives you. What is your, it's like a DISC, it's called the DISC assessment. And it will tell you what drives you, what is your personality type and your behavior style. And so when I took this DISC assessment, which it could be for free, it's on with Tony Robbins. He has a DISC assessment online. I am people driven. So I love to help others in any way I can. And so I fall more in the influential and the support part of the DISC assessment, because it falls into D is for dominant, I is for influential, S is for support, and C is for compliance. So I fall within the people focused. So when I come up with my name for wrestling, I like the connector.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I like the connector. So.
The connector. So that brings me to my next question. I'm sure it kind of, you answered it somewhat there, is that every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move?
Yes. So the connector is definitely, I love to help others connect with what they may need. So for example, when I was rehabbing my house, my neighbors saw it all. So they'd be like, oh, who'd you use for your painter? Who did you use for your, you know, they saw what we did. Who'd you use for your roofer? And so it was like, we were able to help them connect with those types of people because we already did the vetting. And so we became those that our friends would call. Who can I get for a painter? Who can I get for a flooring person? And so being that connector is what I enjoy, being able to help one person build their business and the other person happy with the results. So
Very cool, very cool. And the cool thing about being a connector is then when you help other people, they want to help you, right? It's that law of reciprocity, right? It's cool.
Right.
What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career?
Oh, body slam. I think it's limiting beliefs. I think that we set what maybe our childhood might have been like, or our life path, and what maybe people that influenced us around us have said about maybe real estate. Maybe it's not so easy to do. Being a landlord's not so great. I do live in New York, so it's not so landlord friendly. So these are the things we heard all the time. But not realizing that there are other states that you can invest in that are landlord friendly. And there's also, I think we crushed our limiting beliefs when we did end up investing outside of our state, and realized you don't have to be in your own backyard. You can go somewhere else and invest out of state and find where you want to be, and landlord friendly states is what we look for. So I think crushing my limiting belief about that, and also crushing my limiting belief that you don't necessarily have to always be the landlord. You can also be a limited partner in a deal and get into real estate. You don't have to have buckets of money to get into real estate. You can do it by being a limited partner as well. So so crushing my limiting beliefs was definitely something we had to overcome.
Very cool. So then, was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think after a while, we digested as much content as we could as far as real estate was concerned, podcasts and reading books. And it was just like, okay, now we need to take action and be around, actually physically around people that are doing it. So it was the first time we went to our first large multifamily conference. I mean, we got on a plane, we left our kids, and we were like, let's do this. And so we went, and met with great people. And it was from that moment on, getting on that plane to go to that conference and meeting with those people and networking with great, amazing, being in the same group with the same mindset has gotten to where we are today. So if it wasn't for taking that jump and that leap into okay, we're done with this content. We really have digested everything. Now we need to take action. And that's what got us today. I mean, we are, JV and GP and LP. And if it wasn't for that moment, we wouldn't be here where we are today. I wouldn't be speaking with you either.
Great. Well, I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you're here speaking today, because this has been a really fun interview, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you so much. But before we go, if people want to reach out to you, if people want to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they do so?
They could reach me at my website, nouveaupartners.com, or they can reach me via email, francesca@nouveaupartners.com. I'm on Facebook, Francesca and Jim Apostolou, or LinkedIn, Francesca Apostolou. You could find me anywhere.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thank you so much, and have an awesome rest of your day out there in New York.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You do the same.